So the end of part 2, I had just finished texturing the canvas with the sponge. And now I'm going to fill all those cracks in with some washes of color. And I really want to cool this canvas down while I'm at it, so I'm going to use a little bit of cobalt blue. It looks pretty bright right now, but I'm adding other things to it. And raw umber helps tone down the blue. You can make sort of a gray or black with this if you use the right amounts, which I doubt is going to happen right now. And since I'm doing wash, I don't want very much paint at all, but I'm going to be using a lot of water. And also the acrylic medium, the fluid stuff. Looks a lot lighter than what it's going to dry as because the acrylic medium just kind of adds a milkiness. So this is where I take my wash. I'm just going to set it in the middle. I'll do the middle part last. I take it and I just brush it. Oops. Maybe I won't do the middle part last. Just brush it. As you can see, it's settling into the hollows of the texture and leaving the highlights sticking out. Now that I've done 2 washes of the darker color over the light part, you can see how much it sank into the crevices of the texture, how it brings it out. So the next step is I'm going to use my fan brush. I'm going to dry brush highlights into the top of all the textures. It'll mostly be effective in the dark areas down here, because as you can see it is pretty dark. It'll just help bring out more the texture. And just like when I use the sponge to add some highlights, I'm going to do the same with my fan brush, which is this brush right here. However, I don't want any water in this at all, so I'm going to use only the matte gel medium in order to dilute my color. As I'm covering the entire canvas, this I'm going to need a fair amount. Now it looks white, but it will dry clear. Alright, so like I mentioned with dry brushing, I do use my fan brush. This is very cheap, it's a bristle, having these pig hair bristles. You don't want a fancy brush for this because, I mean, it's really rough on the brush. This is what happened to my last brush that I used a lot. Just because you're not adding any water to the paint, it tends to collect up there and dry completely solid. And I got quite a few paintings out of this other brush, so they do last me a while, at least 6 months. For this, I want to get a very light coating of paint on my bristles. Spread it out a lot. I don't want it to be very clumpy when I start brushing on the canvas. So that's about all I do. So I'm going to start focusing on the dark parts. Just really lightly brush it over, so it barely contacts the surface of the painting, and only the raised parts of the texture really get any paint on them. So I ended up only doing one pass with the dry brushing because I was pretty happy with the way the texture came out. Then I did another really light wash over that just to smooth it out a bit because it was looking a little sharp. I also did some more sponge work in the center here because the transition between light and dark was a little too harsh for my liking. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with the way everything's coming together, so I'm going to leave that here. The next part of the blog, I'm going to be doing the finishing touches, which is basically I'm going to be adding some nails and some splatter, paint the edges and varnish the whole piece. So that will be fun, and I will see you guys then.